But, now that you mentioned that, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And I know some of you people out there, you're still looking for that perfect gift for that special someone. Well, look no further, because nothing says I love you like a gold cap bitches t-shirt from the Goblin Goldcast swag store.
You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast with Dex and Mac. I got mouths to feed, so let's get this thing started. Time is money, friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Azeroth. You're listening to the Goblin Goldcast, your guide to making gold in World of Warcraft. This is episode 26. I'm your host, Dex, coming to you from Napa, California. With me on Skype is the man who once unplugged a man's life support just because he needed to charge his cell phone, my co-host Mac from Anchorage, Alaska. How you doing, Mac?
Well, I had bars. I had to use the phone.
Can you hear me now? But I don't suppose he could anymore.
Oh, it doesn't go beep when it shut off. So.
Oh, man. Well, this week we're going to discuss a little bit of a mix of topics, beginning with a question from a longtime listener about guild interactions while making gold. But first, how was your week, Mac?
Fantastic. 7.1.5 dropped. And been enjoying that.
Yeah.
I was excited about the catch-up mechanic for the artifact weapon, and it makes sense now because you don't start getting artifact research until level 110 is when you can actually first start researching it anyways. But in my mind, I was thinking I'd be able to get artifact research level 20 right away on all my tunes that weren't 110, and that didn't happen.
You'll just be waiting a little while.
Yeah, I did not get another legendary this week. I did get some upgrades on a couple of my tunes that are some of my new 110s, but I was bummed about the no new legendary.
Did you fill out a ticket? I mean, because
I think they heard you whining last time and they decided that's Mac.
I think you've overestimated my pull and influence just a little bit.
Oh, and then last week when we were doing the show, well, it's been rather cold here, and Mrs. Mac has been under the weather. They actually sent her home from work. She didn't want to bring the plague out to work. So we have two vehicles. I've got we've got the Suburban. I've got a little beater with a heater that I drive around, but it drives like an ice skate. So while she was sick, I prefer to drive the 4-wheel drive. It's safer. Don't slide through as many intersections. Anyway, but it is cold, so I like to run it every day or so, just to keep it defrosted and keep the battery charged up.
Right.
And last week, just before the podcast, I went out there to warm it up and thaw the windows out and get a little charge of the battery, and came inside and was going to sit down for about 5 minutes and go out there and shut it off. And Mrs. Mac and I were talking, and you sent me a text. Hey, I'm on Skype. I ran upstairs, got on the computer with you, got so excited, 6-month episode and everything, and off we went on the podcast. You and I got done about an hour and a half later, and I walked downstairs, and I noticed the front door was unlocked, and I was like, that's strange. I always lock that. And then it was like, oh my God, the car's still running.
Oh my God.
It was fully thawed.
Oh man, you and cars, I swear. I seem to remember a time we were sitting around. I think you were waiting for the People's Court to start or something like that, and you told me that your father always said you were an excellent driver, something like that.
Whoppers on at 5, yeah.
Extra credit for those that get that joke, but anyway, you're probably as old as we are.
I'm a very good driver.
An excellent driver.
Excellent driver, yeah. You can't tell it sometimes up here. Holy moly.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about how cold it is in the snow. It made me realize something. In Alaska, at least, where you're at out there, the poor kids out there, I don't guess they ever get a snow day where school is canceled because of snow. I mean,
they do.
They do?
When I was younger, it was like it snowed. Okay, get to school.
Yeah, it's good. Welcome to Alaska. It's snowing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and now if it snows or gets icy, they absolutely freak out and they shut the schools down. And, I mean, I sound like someone's dad talking about, when I went to school 20 years ago, 30 years, 100 years ago, we went to school uphill in the snow, both ways, both directions. But it is. We'd lose the power at school in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And the power had to be out for 2 hours for they'd let us go home. Nowadays, you lost the power at school. It was out for like 45 minutes. They're like, go home,
Oh my God, man! I don't get that. It's because I lived in Alaska, and I remember distinctly that your 2.5 months of good weather does fall in the summertime when school's out anyway. So these kids go to school 6-7 weeks a year.
Yeah.
If inclement weather keeps them at home, I mean.
No, it's only when the roads are really bad. We do have the hillside area of town. There's some schools up there. The buses have some issues occasionally going. So I can understand it. We've gotten to be a little bigger city, not what you would consider a big city up there, but
Right. I mean, but staying home when it snows in Alaska is like in Anchorage. It's like saying, to the kids that live in Seattle. Okay, no school if it rains.
Yeah. No.
Or in Chicago, sorry guys, the wind's blowing today, so school's out.
Well, I still in the wintertime, I mean, unless I'm going out of town, I mean, t-shirt, jeans. I've got a little insulated windbreaker. That's what I wear. I mean, it's.
I drove my wife crazy with this. She's always complaining about the cold out here. We live in Napa, California, wine country. Okay, I'm not gonna
You get a lot of whining?
I'm not gonna lie. The weather's nice here, and when it comes to wine country, my wife's got it down on this because it dropped down. Once in a while we'll have a cold day. By our standards, a cold day. And I remember it dropped down to it was like 50 degrees one day, and
t-shirt weather.
Yeah, and I said to her, I said, well, in Anchorage, I said we'd be out in shorts and a t-shirt this weather. And the funny thing is, she thinks I'm exaggerating. But
oh no. And what's funny is when winter first starts happening up here, it gets down October, it starts dropping down into the teens and stuff like that, and it's a little cold. By December, and right now January, where we're -5 this weekend, I think we're supposed to get down like -14. It's like, okay, I need my insulated windbreaker on. It's a little chilly out. It's not so bad. By the time Easter rolls around up here towards April,
mm-hmm.
And the snow, when it's 30 degrees outside, it's like take the jacket off. It's too hot. So there's a difference between going into winter and coming out of winter.
Yeah.
You and I will be heading off to Vegas around the 26th of April.
Yeah.
I'll go from just starting to warm up here to, oh my God, it's really hot there. So.
Oh yeah. Vegas is a different animal as far as the weather out there. That's for sure.
It's always when you're getting on the plane, you're always trying to decide what do I need to bring with me. Should I bring a jacket so when I get back home?
Yeah. I don't know. Just I sometimes I feel like I'm getting old because I think that the people are getting a little soft for what they can't handle. My kids, I had kind of a funny moment. My kids, they're all, it's a nice day out. They're all piled up on the couch, with their Kindles, playing with apps on their Kindles, and even my kindergartner, he's doing that. And I said, when I was a kid, when I was your age, every day I was outside, playing outside. I didn't do any of this. Every single day I played outside. And they just kind of stare at me, kind of half blinking. And then my youngest one said something to the effect of, were you getting into trouble all the time, Dad? that he didn't understand it. To him, if I was outside almost every day, I was clearly being punished for something.
Now that was after we got back in from being outside. It was.
Well, he also asked me what kind of a Kindle I had when I was a kid. So,
I remember you and I, when we were growing up, we lived in two different towns, a couple-hour travel apart, at least at that time at our age.
Yeah.
And you'd come over and visit me where I was living, and my folks were sure you were a bad influence on me, and I'd go over to visit you, and your folks just knew I was a bad influence on you.
Yeah, one of them was right.
Yeah.
But, anyway.
So how has your week been?
Well, you mentioned 715 dropping, and I know I'm not alone with this, but I was just a little bit disappointed that the change to tokens didn't go live. I have not seen any indication of why that was, why it was held back. Maybe they decided they don't want to link it to the patch. They wanted to do it as a separate thing. I don't know. There's a lot of chatter and a lot of speculation on it. There are even people that are trying to make claims that it's not going to go through, that it was never promised. Trust me, it was promised.
I saw the video.
Yeah. It wasn't, they didn't tease at it and say, maybe we'll think about it. They did say it was coming. They did say that. They didn't say it was coming with 715, and it certainly didn't. But I'm suspicious that the developer Q&A that's happening tomorrow morning is going to clarify all that. They're probably going to talk about it all. And, so during the time when I'm editing the podcast, that'll be going. I'll probably stop editing the show long enough to listen to that at least. And, record a few edits to make it look like that I anticipated the change. No. Anyway, I expect them to get that question at least once about what happened with that. And one of the things that I was kind of anxious to see, I wanted to see if the value was set at $15. It makes sense that it would, but I'm a little nervous that they're going to make it 10. They're kind of double dipping on the profit if they do that. It is a little greedy to do that. And coming from me, okay. Anybody who knows me knows that I don't typically use the word greed in a negative way. Usually if I use the word greed or greedy, it's the highest form of praise. But in this case, I'm not using it in that way. They are already, when somebody buys a token, the first person to bring the token into the market that pays real money for it is paying $20 for something that has a value of $15 already, to be transferred into 30 days. So they've already made their $5 right there. If they add to that by making another $5 on the other end of it, I think that's going a bit far. I think there's making money, and then there's just really taking advantage of your, of your audience. And so I'm hoping, I have faith that it's going to be 15, but I just want to see it. And plus, I've got 10 of them, and I want to buy more, but I'm maxed out until I use one of them. And as soon as it goes live, I will use all 10 of them so that I can buy 10 more, because the price is going to do another bump immediately when this goes live. That's my anticipation. I think we're going to see about a 10K bump in Northern Realms on day one when that goes live. I'm
waiting to see. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's probably more than 10K.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if the price is going to start dropping now that it hasn't dropped in 7.1.5.
Well, there has been some fluctuation, because there were the early adopters like myself that when it was announced jumped in immediately and got some because the price was so low.
Right.
I wasn't able to get them when they were in the low 30s. But I was actually on vacation, I believe, when the announcement was made, if I remember right. I was out of town, and so unfortunately I was not able to jump in there and get them immediately. They did pop up a little bit, but by the time I got back, they dropped down 5,000 from where they peaked.
Right.
So there's been some back and forth on it, and I wouldn't be surprised if the price went down a little bit today and tomorrow, or at least today, depending on what the announcement is. It's made tomorrow. It might not hold, but yeah, I expect to see some fluctuation, and it's going to find its level. It's going to find the right spot, and that'll take a little bit of time. And oh my God, I'm glad I'm not on the European realms. My God, their prices for tokens were already through the roof, and this is just going to make it go nuts.
Well, someone on Twitter was mentioning that the Korean realms, the price was just huge.
Well, in some of the Asian markets, they have a completely different they have a completely different structure for how they play. They don't have a lot of them don't have an unlimited. They don't have an unlimited play for a month. You don't pay for a month and get to play unlimited for the month. You pay by usage, and I think it has to do with local laws. Somebody can correct me on that if I've made a mistake on it. But the way I understand it, it's either not popular, or it's frowned upon, or it's flat out not legal to do it that way. I don't know, but they don't have the same subscription plan that we do. It's very different.
Yeah, another reason it's nice to be over on this side of the pond.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the way you look at it. If you are an ultra casual user, then you're saving money. If you're somebody that plays 16 hours a day, you're getting soaked. So it just depends on where you fall on that scale for whether it's good or bad, I guess.
This week we had some emails that came in. Whenever you're ready, I can go through the first three of them, then we can go into the fourth, which is what the topic of discussion was about this week.
Right. We can go ahead and do that. Go ahead and tell us what we've got for emails.
If we're at that point now.
We are now.
Hey, last week when we were talking about the question that Goochwich Copperbottom asked, we assumed he was talking about transmog. And he said, hey, another solid show. My initial question was indeed inspired by some high-end transmog that I'm trying to move. Solid guesswork, lots of great advice. So, hey, once in a while we do get something right. We had figured that out.
Well, and on that, like stated before, and I know a lot of you already realize this, but when you're talking about transmog, transmog's always going to take time. It doesn't mean anything. It usually means nothing if you put it up and then you find it back in your mailbox and it doesn't sell. So definitely not something to panic on. No need to pull the ripcord. Everything's good.
And you can have two people selling the exact same item, transmog item, in the auction house, and one of them sells
yeah.
over and over and over,
yeah.
and the other one doesn't sell.
Yeah. It's all in the timing and maybe I know you're talking about me. I know you're talking about a certain item that you keep selling that I can never seem to sell, and I'm wondering if the problem is on that particular realm, which is not my main realm. I'm wondering if the problem is the name of my auction house tune. Yours is like Honest Guy or something like that, and I think mine is We Cheat 'Em and How. Or something like that. Or was it Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe? Yeah, the law offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
There we go. But, the other second email this week was from, it actually wasn't an email, it was from Twitter, @Pooches. Said, absolutely love the podcast. Your advice on stack sizes completely changed my auction house game. Currently able to sell crafting mats at 10% above market pretty consistently because I sell the right size stacks. Starlight roses and multiples of 7, for example. Keep up the entertaining show. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So what you want to do is you want to send the thank you gold to Dex on... No,
I consistently, when I'm selling items, and I mean, I got this from you. When I sell them the right stack size, I consistently make more gold that way than just trying to match the lowest price.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always amazing to me to go and look in the auction house and see all of these odd stack numbers that just no rhyme or reason. And what it is somebody just puts all that they have in there, and whatever number it is, that's what it is. And
right.
I've also seen people put I don't know. I mean, it could be something that it takes 10 of to make the common item or what have you, and all of their stacks are stacks of 7 or something like that. And you'll see every single stack will be a stack that makes no sense. And but I've noticed that I'll see people do that, and all of their stuff is stacked like that. And for some reason, I guess that helps them know which ones are theirs at a glance. I don't know. I really don't know. I tried something interesting one day. A lot of people were selling. There was an item, I can't remember what it was. I was selling a bunch of them. The common price was about 750 gold, and I priced mine at 777, 77 silver, 77 copper, and all of mine sold over the ones that were 750. So it's weird, but somebody looked at that and went, that's got to be good luck. That's got to be a sign. I'm going to do that, and all of a sudden I'll get a legendary, even though I'm not the training wheels needing kind of guy. I might get one just because I brought myself some luck.
Speaking of legendaries, we have another friend we've talked about previously. Charmus wanted me to let you know that he did get a legendary. So he's said that he's actually one up on you for the first time.
Hey, well, you know what they say, even a blind nut can find a squirrel once in a while, right?
Reverse that?
Reverse that? I don't know. It just it's funny because of who it is, but so I'm not going to go any further. He doesn't listen anymore, does he?
No.
I think we confused him by like the second episode, so I don't think he listens anymore.
No, he said there weren't any pictures, so
there weren't any. I'm going to stop right there.
This will be the first time he listens, and he won't listen to us again. He's not answering our Skype calls. I don't know what's going on.
Oh my God! So was that it for the emails? Do you have another one?
There was one other before we get on the one that gave us a topic of discussion. And this last week we talked about, we've talked about wanting to have some interviews here on the show, and we're still trying to figure out all the or a way to do that that'll work well. And this one came out from Bartindi on Airy Peak. Bartindi, sorry.
I don't know.
Dex and Mac, been listening to you guys.
Bartender? Was it bartender?
No, Bartindi. He has it spelled out. Dex and Mac, been listening to you guys for 5 months now. You've been a great resource and helped me in my mini goblining ways, the paltry 250K. But I only get to play about 10 hours a week if I'm lucky, and the auction house PvP is only part of what I enjoy spending my time doing. I understand that 100%. Anyway, I digressed. He says, you mentioned in your latest episode, number 25, that you were having some technical challenges as you scale what you're trying to accomplish. He says, well, I'm not a podcaster. I listen to a few, and Pat Crane over at CTR, that's Convert to Raid, is actually starting an initiative to help new podcasters and thought these might be a good resource for you. He also just posted up on YouTube a Q&A which might be helpful. He gave us the link. And he says, shout out to the CTR, Convert to Raid Guild. Or podcast. So again, thank you. We had heard from Ro on Rome Maintenance about that. I wasn't aware that he had started it quite yet, but that'll be something that's nice. And Dex and I will be looking over there to see if they have some good information that we can use to find a way to get a third person working with our setup.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like some great information. Couldn't help but notice that I get stuck on these details that he's been listening for 5 months. Yeah, I know. The first month sucked. I wouldn't have listened to it either. Don't go back and listen to the first month. It was, we were, the first month I was still figuring out what I was doing. And first 3 months, Mac was still figuring out what he was doing.
Do I know what I'm doing now?
Well, we're gonna go with that anyway.
We'll edit it to make it sound better later.
We will. We'll make it sound much better. All right. Sometimes I make myself sound better, and I just leave yours as is. But
Oh yeah. Sometimes you play with the audio in other ways.
Okay, so what we'd like to discuss now is kind of go into a little bit of a main topic here. If we have a main topic today, we're gonna ramble around and see if we can find some useful bits here and there. But this was inspired by a listener with a question about kind of a tricky situation with a guildmate, and I'm going to let Mac read the actual letter, and then we can go from there.
And this is from Sean over on Facebook, and the only reason I'm using his first name is he and I have discussed this before. It's not his real name, so not a problem. Topic of discussion. I bought a lot of materials to have a guildmate craft for a lot of BOEs for an enchanting shuffle. After all the mats were bought, it was about a $70,000 investment. The professions window said that level 3 could get over 3,000 items crafted. However, my guildmate sent me only around 500. Is the huge loss in gold, around 30K, worth possibly causing some guild drama by calling him out, or should I just leave it be and take the hit? What's your take on it?
I'd like to start on that and say that anything that we say from this point forward when we're talking about this Facebook letter that he sent some good information, but we are missing a few details to really give a complete answer. I don't know what was discussed ahead of time. If they talked about it, he mentioned a level 3 crafter, what he could expect from that. The first thing that came to mind when I heard that was, is he a level 3 crafter? Did you discuss that? Is he maybe a level 1 crafter? Did you discuss what the return was going to be? I don't know what was discussed in advance on that. And the problem can be one of a couple of things. It could be that's what he was able to make at his level. We didn't find out what the actual items were. If we did, we would have researched and looked to see how many you would get at level 1 crafting versus level 3, and then we could see if it makes sense. I don't know if it would be that dramatic, but we could the difference. But we could certainly see. I know that when you're talking about, I don't want to get too deep into this right now, but when you're talking about, like, for instance, alchemy, and you're dealing with alchemy procs, you need to decide who gets the procs. Right. Does the crafter keep them, or does the person requesting the combines, do they get them?
Right. In the past, I've done it two different ways with my alchemy, whether I was elixir or transmute master. If I had somebody that wanted something made, it was like, we would discuss the price. You can either pay me this much, or look, I'll make them and I'll just keep the procs. And some people do it that way, just assume that they're going to get the procs. But again, you want to go in and discuss that ahead of time. Well,
and you know what? It might be a simple matter. It might be a simple matter of he is level 3, but there was no discussion about what would be produced. And in his mind, he may be thinking, hey, I achieved level 3. I worked for that. I did this. I did that to get there. That's my bonus. And I will combine at the rate of what a level 1 would. And that's what he gave you, and it was. I'm assuming. Did he say it was a free combined situation, or did he tip the guy, pay the guy in some way? Did he say?
Did not say.
Okay.
Did not say.
So I'm not sure if that all complicates it. But if it was just a free service provided by a guildie, he might have treated it as, this is the way I'm going to get paid. My level 3. Me being a level 3 at this, is my bonus that I keep, and that's how I get paid. This is something that kind of carries over into real life far too often. When you're thinking about your guild, think about your guild the way you would think about your friends or your family, because in game, really, that's who they are. They're your friends and family in game. And that's why he's concerned. If this was a random guy in trade or somebody he found off of the auction house or something that he didn't know, he would not even be questioning whether he should say something about it. He'd be all over it. He also probably, and I'm assuming he didn't go into complete details on what would be produced, but he would also, I would think, go into solid detail for this. If he did go into detail with the guy, and the guy was supposed to be sending him 3,000 of the item, and he only sent him 500, then there's no question that you should immediately contact the guy and say, hey, what's up? I didn't get what I was expecting, and at this point, enough time has passed. If he hasn't already acted on it, it's kind of weird to say something. The time to say something would be immediately. And
our issue again is we don't have all of the information here, so so it's kind of difficult when we do not mind when you're sending us an email. If you have to do, if it's a 3-page thing, we're not going to read it on the podcast. Right. But at least more actually helps us when we're trying to figure out what's going on.
Oh yeah, and we do. To be clear, we read every email, every Facebook post and Twitter message. We read all of that, and we love getting it. So you're never going to hear from us too long didn't read. First of all, we're two 51-year-old guys. All right. We run a podcast where we take 5 minutes of information and stretch it into almost an hour every single week. Okay. Too long didn't read doesn't exist in our book. Okay. All right.
We can talk about nothing for forever. I see my kids' eyes glass over in their head when I'm talking to them sometimes. All right, Dad, shut up.
Yeah. Well, so don't worry about giving a lot of detail and all of that. Because it gives us the big picture and we can see. But as I was saying before. In real life, in the real world, you've got a friend or a relative that needs a place to live, right? It happens all the time. Hey, yeah, you can come stay with me. There's no lease. There's no written agreement for how much rent's going to be paid. No agreement for, hey, you do your own dishes. You take out your own trash.
Who's going to handle the electrical bill? Who's going to handle?
You don't have parties all hours of the night. Where you don't invite me. There are rules, in a situation like that, and a lot of times those rules aren't made explicit when it's a friend or a relative, and it never ends well. Absolutely never ends well. And the way you want to treat a transaction with a guildmate is the same way you would treat it with someone that you didn't know. And it's the best way to respect them and to protect yourself. You want to have a good understanding. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't cut them an awesome deal. It doesn't mean that you can't, tip them real good on what they're doing. It doesn't mean that you guys can't treat each other like family. But the problem comes when the two parties expect two completely different things. And this happens, like I said, so often in the real world, and it causes rifts in whole families, friendships to completely dissolve. So the very thing that you're not doing in order to preserve the friendship or to preserve the guild in this situation can have the exact opposite effect when things fall apart, when things go bad. So always have an understanding, always have an understanding of what's expected, spell it all out, and then everybody's happy. You agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other option is if the person's going to be doing the one doing the crafting. You had talked to me about this. You could have a stack of the item already made, and that's one way to handle it. If you're giving me these mats that's going to create this many items, here's the items, hand them over, and then you use the mats yourself, and then you don't have to worry about the procs, and that way there's no confusion there.
Well, I ran into that sort of thing, not with guildmates, because with guildmates, to be honest, the way I would handle it, if it wasn't costing me a whole lot of time, I mean, if it's something that I could do in a few minutes of combines, I would never charge a guildmate for that. I would just make the combines if it was for their own use. Now, if I'm making them something that they're going to turn around and sell in the auction house, then I'm actually transferring wealth from me to them, and you need to recognize that that's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
So if you're okay with that, great, but recognize that that's what's happening. But like, for instance, if somebody wanted a engineering chopper, for instance, because they wanted the motorcycle, they wanted to be able to tool around on it, whatever, and they supply the mats, there's no way I'm going to charge them for that combined if they're a guildie. Okay.
Right.
But I better not see it on the auction house for sale later.
Right.
They better have learned it, because that wasn't the agreement. But I had dealt in trade before with alchemy combines, where people were wanting, and this is when you're talking about transmutes. People wanted transmutes done, and they were looking for an alchemist, and I saw there was one in particular. I saw him auctioning that he didn't care if they were a transmute master or not. He just needed somebody to transmute this for him, and so I already had some of the item made up. He traded me in the trade window. I gave him what the result would be. I did not group up with him and do the transmute right there. And the reason why I didn't was because if there was a proc, I wanted the proc.
Right.
Okay. So I did a service for him. I charged for the service. And if I had gotten a proc with the mats that he had given me, I would have kept them. In this particular case, I didn't get a proc. But if I had, I would have kept them. And the only way I was able to do that without causing an argument was to already have them made up. Because if we didn't discuss it in advance, if we didn't discuss all that in advance, as soon as you saw the procs, the guy's going to say, "Oh, hey, I'm supposed to get those too, right?"
Right.
And if I brought it up in advance and said, "Oh, by the way, if there are any procs, I'm going to keep them," then it becomes a negotiation point. So I decided to avoid all that drama and just deal with it the way that I did. And if he had said something to me about, "Oh, well, why aren't you combining? Why are you doing it as a trade?" I would have brought up the fact that he said he didn't need a transmute master, and what's the deal? Sorry, I didn't realize you actually needed a transmute master, and we go from there. But no, you do want to protect yourself, and you want to protect your guildmate too. Because you don't want to make your guildmate feel like that they got ripped off. And what's happened in this case right here is you feel, the person that wrote into us, I mean, I'm talking to you, you feel, it seems like that you got you get kind of screwed for what, $30K or something like that? I mean, that's not a good feeling. Personally, I would have said something. Yeah,
the other thing is, if you're relying on procs, I mean, this is an extreme case, expecting 3,000 and getting 500. But if you're expecting procs to make up a good portion of it, the RNG can be a bugger.
He said it was enchanting, right?
No, he just said it was. So the professionals window said level 3 could get over 3,000 items crafted.
I thought he said enchanting mats.
No. Said all the mats were bought for a 70K investment. The profession window said, I'm assuming it's Trade Skill Master he's talking about, the shit said.
Right.
Said you get over 3,000 items crafted, and they were BOE items. So I'm assuming it's not alchemy.
Right. So I don't know. It's I'm sure he's going to write to us and give us more details, and we will update next week if he does. So we'll update, because I'm actually very curious for the rest of the story. But it's an expensive lesson. If it's a 30,000 gold lesson, that's pretty steep to learn the lesson. But the lesson here is clear. Make sure that everything is spelled out in advance. Right. And so there are no hard feelings, and that's pretty much that there.
So Dex, Valentine's Day is coming up next month. This in-game specials going on. You think you're going to get the Love Rocket for your mount collection this Valentine's?
I hope so. I love that thing, man. It's it's. I think it says something about me that the two mounts that I want are the Love Rocket and the Magical Rooster Egg. I think there's some kind of there's a message in there somewhere. But, now that you mention that, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And I know some of you people out there, you're still looking for that perfect gift for that special someone. Well, look no further, because nothing says I love you like a gold cap bitches t-shirt from the Goblin Goldcast swag store. I mean, come and check it out. And, that look on their face when they open that up and they see that you cared enough to send, well, not the very best, I guess. It's you could have gone to Jared.
And if you're not into the t-shirt type thing, there's logo stuff, there's coffee cups, other t-shirts.
Oh my God. Hey, and in all fairness, we have taken the ad off of the beginning of the show. It's we're kind of going ad free, and so I'm gonna plug the swag store. We're gonna try to generate a little bit here, but remember, you're not allowed to get the gold cap T-shirt unless you've hit gold cap. I mean, that's just cheating otherwise. Okay, maybe not. Who's gonna know, right? I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to demand proof at the time of ordering. Oh boy! Well, I think that's going to about wrap up this week's show. I'd like to thank Schaefer Bates for his awesome work as the Goblin voice at the beginning of each show. Also, Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme music, Hot Rock, licensed under Creative Commons.
And if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can contact us at Mac, that's MAC, at GoblinGoldcast.com, or Dex, that's DEX, at GoblinGoldcast.com. You can contact us on Twitter at Goblin Goldcast, or you can visit us on Facebook.
And don't forget to check out the new shirt that I just talked about at cafepress.com/Goblin Goldcast. And you can leave us a voicemail on our website, GoblinGoldcast.com. And please subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher if you listen to us there.
And we'll see you next week.
Now go make some gold.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.